So I'm Dominic Milano. I'm the SVP of Sales and Business Development in North America for Targetspot. As you may know, Targetspot's evolving focus has been on the various areas of innovation in digital audio, thus our position as a multi-digital audio platform. And one of the things that we are focused on today is one of the more really interesting dimensions, and that is mobile gaming. It's actually the first instance of putting audio ads in non-audio content. And the benefit of that is the same benefit that audio provides generally, that being companionship. But it's interesting because when selling audio, we often talk about how consumers are not always looking at the screen. In this instance, consumers are looking at the screen, but more importantly, we don't want to interrupt their play. And because that engagement is there, it's forward-leaning, that's where we believe that, yes, as the webinar has been titled, Brands Fit in the Game. So we've put together a really great panel comprised of thought leaders and candidly the major players in this evolving space. And we've designed this agenda to give you a look at how we got here, a tangible view of where we are today, and then finally, where we see the space headed moving forward. So we'll start with Ben Williams to provide background and context around advertising in the mobile gaming space. Ben is the founder of Kiln, a digital transformation, easy for me to say, Ben, agency working with clients across the media and entertainment sector. Prior to joining or starting Kiln, Ben worked at Apple, Channel 4, in Moby, and others focused in in-app development and monetization. We'll then move after after Ben to Christian Facey, who is the co-founder of AudioMob, one of the pioneering companies focused on this space. Before starting AudioMob, Christian served as a strategist at Google and a marketing science partner for Facebook. So he's seen a few things in his time and therefore really well-versed to speak about the tangible opportunities for audio in mobile gaming today. From there, we'll dig deeper into this with some perspectives from Amit Monheit, who is co-founder of Odeo, another flagship company in the space. Amit spent more than 15 years in a variety of leadership positions in the digital and audio space, including Audio Burst, Iron Source, DealPly Tech, and JJP Mobile, before starting Odeo in 2020. And then we'll finish up with Adam Pattison and Abhishek Sen to discuss where we see the space headed. Adam is the current managing director of Targetspot for the UK and was also, congratulations, Adam, recently named the global head of Target Play, which is a new division of Targetspot that will be focused on further development in this area of audio with mobile gaming. Abhishek is the CEO and co-founder of Number 8. Sometimes I think about that as a reference to Mr. Shagadelic, and of course his name escaped me now, Number 8 is a mobile contextual company, a mobile contextual intelligence company, I should say, and we're talking Star Wars stuff here, where we're designed to reach relevant audiences in the right moment without relying on private information. I think that you will see some really interesting things from Abhi when he and Adam talk. Okay, so with that, let's jump into this and allow me to introduce you to Ben Williams. Ben, all you.
Thank you very much, Dom. Thanks for the intro. And yeah, really pleased to be on another one of these panels. So thanks for inviting me again, Targetspot. Just realized it's a founder panel as well. Everyone on the panel is a founder. So you don't really see that very often. So hopefully it's going to be a really stimulating chat today. Yeah, I'd like to talk to you about the history really of the app ecosystem and how it's developed. As one of the elder statespeople on this panel, I've been around the block a bit and can talk just from experience about what's been going on in this industry and to hand it over to the rest of the panel to talk about where this industry is headed to. So some of the things that I'd like to talk to you about today, keep it really nice and simple, a brief history of apps, you know, where it's come from, where it's ended up in 2021. It's basically gone in one direction as a bit of a clue for you. The explosion of mobile gaming and what that's meant for the industry. And then also just keeping it really simple, how games monetize and the importance of brand advertisers in this whole mix. So a brief history of apps. So this all started on July 10th, 2008, when Steve Jobs announced the launch of the App Store, not long after the launch of the iPhone in 2007. And the market has just exploded spectacularly since that point. So the App Store was originally created as a safe place for consumers to visit, safe sort of walled gardened web applications and have brand safe experiences. And since then, we've seen huge proliferation. There was 230 billion app downloads in 2021 alone, and that's across the App Store and Android. So it's been sort of exponential growth, and one of the seismic changes within sort of any industry, not just the digital industry. Apple's paid over $250 billion to developers since 2008. And in 2021 alone, that was totaled to 60 billion. And typically how that works is, if you're publishing an app on the Apple App Store, depending on what your monetization strategy, it's typically a 70-30 split with Apple. So the developer keeps 70% and Apple keeps 30%. So the bigger that number is, clearly the more consumer spending and activity that's happening within the ecosystem. So some huge growth that's going on right now across the app ecosystem. But I just wanted to take it back and just give you a sketch of what I believe are some of the highlights over the past decade. Other people will have other milestones that they think are important, but these are some of the things that I want to call out before we drill down into the detail on the presentation. But it all started in 2005 when Google launched the Android operating system, which is one of the first smartphone operating systems in existence. And to give you an idea of how quaint the industry was back then, that acquisition of Google for Android was $50 million. I'm not sure what that acquisition would be today, but it would be a hell of a lot higher than that. The iPhone was launched in 2007 and the App Store soon after that in 2008. And this kind of really kickstarted what we're going to be talking about today, which is, the huge opportunity within the app ecosystem. Google acquired AdMob in 2009 for brands because these two acquisitions that happened, which was Google's acquisition of AdMob and then Apple's acquisition of Quattro, really started to demonstrate to brands that some of the bigger tech companies were taking this seriously and starting to create brand safe environments for brands to advertise and reach consumers with apps. 2011, Apple launched iAd. So now you had Apple with iAd and Google with AdMob. And so these were two of the first major ad networks, really professional sort of elite sort of ad networks to be founded. And it paved the way for a lot of really great ad networks that sort of developed after that, whether it was Vungle or IronSource or others. In 2012, Google rebranded to the Android market as Play. And since then, Google have been really doubling down on that opportunity. And then Apple pivoted towards search ads, which is much more designed for app developers to get paid for distribution on the App Store. And then in 2021, last year, a big change happened in terms of privacy from Apple, where limited ad tracking was put in place, and this impacted a lot of performance advertiser businesses. So Facebook are now reporting that that's going to impact their business to the tune of $10 billion this year. So lots of movement has happened over the past decade. We could sit and talk forever about the history of apps, but let's kind of move on to more recent times. Last year was a big year. 230 billion app downloads in 2021, 5% growth year on year. App Store spend was at a huge velocity of $320,000 a minute. So one of the most scaled industries across the globe. Average daily time spent per user, nearly 5 hours. That's predominantly social media, and that's predominantly things like TikTok and other social platforms. Mobile ad spend, if it was a country, would be the 41st largest country by GDP at 295 billion. So we're talking some huge numbers here. And in terms of its position in the entertainment industry, the number of apps with over $100 million sort of revenue is over 200 compared to just 38 movies in 2021. So it's rapidly overtaking the opportunity that is with the rest of the entertainment industry. Moving forward, so looking now at the explosion in mobile gaming. So I just wanted to kind of put a reference here to Snake, which is probably one of the first games a lot of us played on mobile. Nokia 3310. But what's happened today is that if you look at what the top grossing games in 2021, you probably don't even recognize most of them, and there's nothing wrong with that either. You know, the overall revenue generating, the major revenue generating game for 2021 across all platforms was PUBG, which is a free-to-play battle game. On the App Store, on the Apple App Store, it was Honor of Kings, which is a game, another battle game by Tencent. And Coin Master was the most popular game on Google Play, which is a single player casual game. But with these categories, with these casual and hyper casual categories, a lot of games come into focus for, you know, a period of weeks or months and then fall off the charts. And that is the production line of the mobile gaming industry. So if these games don't look familiar, you know, you're not alone. What it gives you is huge reach to consumers and hard to find audiences, and by working with the right partners, gives you access to some really quality ways to reach consumers. So huge change in what's gone on from its early days, which is basic games on the Nokia, through to what the app ecosystem has enabled us to do as consumers. So the explosion of mobile gaming has really kind of come on sort of during COVID. A lot of common sense here, you know, people were just isolated. So a lot of people were playing mobile games. So an additional 16 billion was added to 2021, bringing total mobile consumer spend growth to 116 billion in 2021. So, you know, it passed the 100 billion mark during lockdown, and then total number of downloads has really accelerated as well. You know, pre-COVID, you know, we're looking at around 65 billion downloads a year, and that accelerated to 83 billion downloads. So it's a really important part of any sort of mass reach media program. You know, brands need to be thinking about using the app ecosystem, whether it's through audio, video, or other methods, to reach consumers, because there's a scaled audience there. If we look at how games monetize, it's very similar to other areas of ad tech. You know, on one side, you've got buyers, or what a lot of people in the industry call demand. So this is when companies like Targetspot work with advertisers and DSPs and other exchanges. Then we start to kind of work with the middlemen, which is the mediators. So the main sort of mediation platforms that app developers use, and these are typically super SDKs where they plug into multiple demand sources on behalf of developers. And there's a handful of those. There's AppLovin, there's IronSource, there's AdMob. And then they work with the ad networks and the developers and the games themselves to ultimately reach consumers. And this is a very data-heavy chain that we're looking at here. It's very well established. And one of the most recent additions into this whole mix is audio. And Christian and Amit will be talking about what they're doing with their companies to help brands sort of work in this space and how they're working with developers. But this is typically the backbone of how any sort of major studio or developer looks at their monetization stack and how they segment each constituent through the value chain. And then just final comments as I'm wrapping up, and just within time as well. So the opportunity, what's next for audio? So a lot of us on that first piece here, a lot of us have been talking about this thing that Daniel Ek talked about a couple of years ago. He's the CEO, founder of Spotify. Major opportunity. There's a switch. There's an $18 billion opportunity in the US alone as traditional radio audio switches to digital. And so with this huge shift in ad dollars coming through, we need to look for new opportunities for brands to reach consumers. So demand is really kind of driving these innovations. Extended reality, there's a lot of interest in talk about what audio looks like, or sounds like, I should say, more like in a virtual world or an augmented reality world. You know, mobile applications are very sort of Web 2, and with the emergence of Web 3 and a big focus on metaverse, virtual reality, augmented reality, there's a big opportunity there for brands to experiment in that space in the coming years. And then also, last but not least, we've talked a lot about brand advertisers as well. A lot of brand partners also have performance campaigns as well, where you need to drive some sort of action. I think there's going to be some great experiments about what customers can do with a cost per acquisition or cost per action type campaign, not just with CPM campaigns that we see across brand and audio. And I know that there's some experimentation that's happening in this space about how we use native functions within phones to be able to drive action for audio campaigns. So that's just me at 10 minutes, and hopefully that's useful. Dom, I'll hand back over to you.
Yeah, well done. Thanks, Ben. So just a couple of questions for you. Clearly, big is the best description of everything that you just summarized in the mobile app space. Both in the number of apps, the number of people using them, and obviously the money that is being invested from all sides. So you would think that that is a very attractive space for brands to want to be in. Were there, as the evolution was happening, were there early adopters? And why did they choose that? What did they see as the key value propositions of putting their brands in games? Because some might, try to categorize a gamer as a specific type of person. But what was it that the brands who were the early adapters, who are they, and why did they go into the space?
I mean, those early adapters, and I was thinking about this, looking back, it was people like Unilever, it's people like Nike. It was the sort of brands that have innovation budgets that wanted to just get onto the next big thing, and anticipated that this app category was going to be really take off. And we kind of saw those experimentations happening like 2010, 2011. And then you started to see dedicated people within media agencies come on board. They were typically called heads of mobile, helping brand partners sort of scale in that space. So there was some Fortune 500 brands that really spotted this opportunity and got behind it. But things really started to accelerate, I'd say, mid last decade, when app campaigns would lead on a media plan. And then significant spend was starting to be put behind it, where you start to get IOs in, $1 million plus type IOs, multinational multi-region campaigns. So yeah, Nike, Unilever, L'Oreal, Renault, those were some of the early adopters. And then it really sort of started to scale mid last decade. So
those brands are not necessarily limited to specific categories, again, because there is such wide diversity here that it's not really about a single brand. You would agree with that? I mean, a single brand category or a few categories.
Yeah. So there wasn't a category that was like that said no to apps or to advertising within apps early on. It was typically the brands that had experimentation budgets that really set the scene and took the opportunity. And it was those case studies that really enabled the industry to scale, actually. So these forward-thinking brands had some courage, put some budget behind it, and were some of the early adopters in that. And that stimulated spend from across other categories too.
Cool. So you kind of touched on this already, but if you could maybe expand a little bit further on how the formats are evolving. Obviously, we're here to talk about audio, and Christian and Amit will, share some very specific ones, but just at a high level, how do you see formats evolving in the space from an advertising perspective?
To begin with, it was like people shoehorning in web, desktop formats into mobile. So it was banners, right? And it started off with static banners. Then rich media and HTML5 as a language became more scaled. And so then we started to see more visual or dynamic ads being produced, and the click-through rates were much higher when something's much more visual. And then things started to move towards video very quickly. I'd say about 2014, 2015, there was a big demand for video content. And then what happened is the gaming industry, being so innovative, they took that format and then they created their own format, which was rewarded video. And that rewarded video content is probably, that rewarded video format is probably one of the most used formats and one of the most expensive formats actually within the performance side of gaming, because it drives such results and it drives a lot of downloads for a lot of apps. And I know Christian's experimenting with rewarded audio as part of Audio Mob, and I think there's some great things that you can kind of look at as inspiration from what's happened over the past few years. So video really dominated up until the turn of the decade, and then audio really started to take off from the start of 2020. So we're seeing like this new way of reaching audiences in an in-app ecosystem, and it feels like, you know, the early days for when video was released as a format and started to scale as a format.
Terrific. Thanks, Ben. And I do think that's actually a great segue, because obviously we're here today to talk about how audio fits in these games. And with Christian, I think he's going to be able to give you some very tangible practices for what is happening. So where we are today, Christian, up to you.
Thanks, Dom. Can you give me a quick nod if you can see everything?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Amazing, amazing. So hi, everyone. Christian, founder of Audio Mob, calling actually from Targetspot's HQ in New York. Great to be here. To give you a quick introduction outside of what Dom mentioned, just on a quick background of audio ads. So many years ago, I met Wilfred at Google Christmas party back in 2017. And as we became friends, I was experimenting with this concept of streaming the music, the hip hop and jazz music I was making, streaming that into my own mobile games that I was making. And as I got to know Wilfred, we started looking at the concept of streaming an audio ad instead of showing a gamer another video ad. Now, this concept is fairly simple to understand. Rather than being blocked by a video ad as you play a game, you can instead listen to an audio ad, and that's how the concept of audio ads in game was born. And it's absolutely amazing to see the substantial investment now going into this space. So, to give you an idea of what this looks like, you can play an audio ad while you're playing your game, because it's really important for users to keep that freemium model, playing the game for free. But now, rather than being blocked by video, you can listen to audio. So here is an example.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs.
So what you just saw there was an example of rewarded audio. So the helicopter was using bullets, but in this case, with the reward being rockets, so the helicopter can destroy its enemies quicker, it got that reward and can listen to an audio ad as an exchange. So that's an example of rewarded audio, rewarding the player with an in-game item like a power-up or a bit of currency in return for listening to an audio ad. And there is, of course, a clickable banner, which is optional as well. Now, it's not just about showing an audio ad with a initial banner. Of course, the audio industry is made up of previous incumbents, radio advertisers that were sending only audio without a companion banner. And what we've done is we've created an audio-only ad format as well, where you don't need to use the banner. You could just send the audio creative on its own.
Say hello to Disney Plus. Start streaming the most talked about movies, series, and documentaries from Marvel.
So this gives you an idea of the flexibility of the format. It's really important to developers that rather than just showing an audio ad with a banner, some developers, for instance, don't actually like the banner being shown. So we've designed the mechanism so that you can show only an audio ad without the banner with a little countdown. So these are the kinds of things that are possible in terms of the format. Now, when we go onto the user research, we've conducted a 7-figure sum of R&D and research in order to make this medium possible. And what we found is that between the UK and the US, 75% of the audience, they actually prefer audio ads over video ads. And this is because you are taking advantage of the fact that you aren't blocking the user. There isn't that negative prior. And what I mean by that is the fact that if you're being blocked by a video, blocking you from your primary motive, which is playing the game, that negative event will actually stop you from consuming the ad and recalling the ad because it's a negative situation, unless the ad, of course, is relevant. So we found that most people prefer audio ads. The other 25% were indifferent. Now, when you have indifference, it means that a user is more willing to accept a new format. And this is a very typical metric that Google and Facebook would use. Most importantly, we actually saw that user retention didn't drop. So again, like a video ad, when you see it, sometimes you put down the phone, or let's say you're watching TV and an advert comes on and your attention goes elsewhere. What we saw is that retention didn't drop. So the user kept playing the game and wasn't doing something else when the audio ads were playing. And we also saw an occasional increase as well in the interactivity of the game. We know this is not a big surprise. If you were to ask yourself who likes video ads in your network, most people would say no. So that's not a surprise that 86% of people dislike video ads. However, when we started looking at a conjoint analysis of sorts, measuring the trade-off between people that would want to be monetized with videos, in-app purchases, or audio actually came out over IAP. Now, this is very interesting for brand advertisers, because if you want to target games that have predominantly in-app purchases, we slot audio ads into those kinds of games to give you exposure to people that have a high propensity to spend. So these are some really, really interesting things that we found out throughout 2020 and 2021. Now, most importantly, and I know most of you are already thinking this, what happens if the user mutes? Now, audio ads conceptually in a game, from what I've shown you, is a simple concept to understand. But the reason that such a format didn't exist before is that analyzing the audio state of a phone is very, very hard to do. And again, part of that seven-figure sum that I previously mentioned went into figuring out how to analyze if someone's listening to Spotify or Pandora or SoundCloud, or Apple Music, or any other kind of audio activity on the phone, including whether the iPhone mute switch is on or off, or even if the phone is ringing. We also conducted some research and found that 61% of 18 to 24-year-olds and over half of all users actually listen to something while they are playing a game, or the audio state of the phone is off, even if the in-game sound effects are, sorry, the audio state is on, even if the in-game sound effects are off. So this is the main gap that we saw. And then we took it a step further in terms of, outside of just making the inventory audible and ensuring that every single ad has at least 30% volume, we can even send prompts to users to encourage them to unmute the game for an in-game reward, thus increasing the addressable size of impressions that are available. So here's an example of what that looks like.
Even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs, keep me away from this.
So just to pause it there, the user has tried to get a free reward, and we have detected that. And as the volume decreased, a prompt came up, tap to raise volume and hear your rewarded ad. And all you have to do as a player is to tap the icon. Well, if you tap the icon, the volume increases.
ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs, keep me away from this.
Then it's tapped.
Central line jobs.
So we've thought of pretty much every mechanic that could benefit not just the game developer from a monetization standpoint and a user, but really benefit the brands in terms of sending audible ads to highly, highly engaged users within the mobile gaming space. And when it comes to how the mobile gaming space is categorized, you have your hyper-casual apps, your word, brain, and puzzle apps, and then you've got your catch-all apps as well. And the highest value ads, especially to doing campaigns via the likes of Targetspot, AudioMob, etc., are hyper-casual apps and word, brain, and puzzle apps. And the reason that we mention this is that hyper-casual apps, these game developers, they constantly acquire new, highly engaged users. And even though these hyper-casual apps, the typical session time is 4 to 5 minutes, gaming is a snacking medium, and these users will keep coming back to these games. So there's a high variety of different games and different highly retained users that are playing these games. So it's a very, very good place to show your brand. And then the word, brain, and puzzle games, the creme de la creme, if you will, of the in-game audio app space is the fact that these puzzle games, such as Word Life or Sudoku or chess, people play these games on an average of 20 to 40 minutes. So you've got highly retained users that tend to play these kinds of games, which have a high amount of in-app purchases. So very, very valuable users that play these games for a very long period of time. Now, as a snapshot of how users play games, mobile gaming touch points. People usually play these games and return to them 10 times plus a week, and it's a snacking medium. This kind of interactivity you see here is very similar to how social media is used, such as Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or Snapchat. The only difference here is that there are billions of gamers now, over 3 billion, and people spend billions of hours a week on games. It is the fastest growing digital medium, and more people play games than in any other demographic segment. People spend more in mobile games than any other digital medium as well, as Ben was alluding to, in terms of outpacing the film industry. Really, gaming is where it's at in terms of user spend and user activity. Billions of gamers, the average age is 36 plus and actually female. 74% of 8 to 24-year-olds actually play mobile games, over half of females, parents, and over half of 65 and over players. So in every single demographic, more people are playing games than not. And this may be a surprising statistic to some of you listening today, but gaming is absolutely the most valuable medium in terms of where you should be showing your brand right now. And the last thing that I'll leave you with is that, again, AudioMob has done a significant amount of research in the space, and the world's largest brands are already using this space. So to give you an example, I'll just play one of the examples here with Spotify.
Hey, ¿qué tal? Soy Karol G y dele click al enlace si quieren escuchar los éxitos latinos de
In hindsight, it was probably better if I played the English version, but the idea here is that we're promoting a playlist for Spotify, and it's a clickable banner through to the Spotify playlist. And again, it's not just Spotify. When it comes to very, very brand conscious clients such as Pampers, we're seeing increases in message association consideration through the panel-based lift studies that we're doing. There is Sky, Audible, Universal, Meta, WhatsApp. So the idea that I'll leave you with here is that, the largest brands are already taking advantage of this very price efficient entry point into mobile gaming in order to reach the most engaged users. So yeah, thank you for listening, and happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, so Christian, it is, I told you, a global audience. So I think that people who are listening from Latin America will appreciate the Spanish version. So
Yes,
look, the thing that most fascinates me about this as a hardcore audio guy is this notion of putting an audio ad in non-audio context, or even with non-audio content. And you touched on this, which I think it's really important, but I want to dig in a little bit deeper, because it's counterintuitive to think about audio in non-audio content. When listeners are streaming music or spoken word content, they obviously have the audio on. So that's never an issue for advertisers. But you talked about how a player might decide to mute their phone when they're playing. And clearly, you guys have that ability, and audio as well. But I'd love for you to just touch briefly on the idea of that if somebody is doing gaming, audio and gaming advertising, that it's not necessarily audio detection available. So in other words, if somebody is playing a game, an audio ad might trigger, but if there's no audio detection, then for what you guys are doing, there is no impression. And that is something that advertisers have to make sure that they are doing diligence on. Can you just touch on that a little bit further?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when it comes to the actual measurement of the audible impression, so the way that things work with AudioMob is that if a piece of gaming inventory doesn't have the audio on, right? So if the audio state is off, sound effects are off, etc., we can send prompts to the user in order to encourage them to unmute the game or the phone so that an audio ad can be delivered. So this is how we integrate directly into all of our premium games. It's of the utmost importance. And then what I alluded to before is the fact that the way that we select inventory and the way that we send the audio ads in, the way that we work with developers to design the prompts as well, so the user isn't annoyed that they're even getting the prompt and then they immediately see the brand. We have thought about brand safety from every single angle when it comes to how we integrate into a game. And again, I'll mention, conceptually, this is a very simple idea. Execution-wise, from a technical standpoint, is very difficult. And the only reason that this idea didn't get built, 4 to 5 years ago, is that the technology wasn't present to analyze the audio state and provide that amount of audibility, verification, and brand safety for the brands. So yeah, that's how we do it, and that's how we see things.
So yeah, to take that a little bit further, and let's just talk about brand safety and the precautions that you guys take in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and again, I'll allude to the Pampers example. There's brand safety, then there's brand safety in terms of how many precautions you need to take with certain brands, and again, whether that's poker stars or more sensitive categories as well. We are GDPR, CCPA, and COPPA compliant. And back in 2019, we kind of saw that each country is pretty much going to be bringing out their own version of GDPR over the next, 5 to 8 years or so. And the way that we design our whole stack is that it could be easily opened up, and other privacy compliance frameworks can be easily added in. So we're just constantly adding in privacy compliance frameworks and kind of keeping up the scratch there. Then there's the fact that there's all the different IAB categories that we automatically exclude as we categorize all the different ads. So we just make sure that obviously the right ads are going to the right games, and the ads that aren't applicable for certain games are excluded. Some games, for instance, are with their more childlike graphical interfaces are targeted towards children, so we block that. Then there is manual selection of games as well. So if the largest, most prestigious brands, they may not want to advertise 90% of their funds on a game where you're I don't know, like messing around with a toilet or something. So we only integrate into like premium games, racing games, action games, puzzle games, where the retention is very, very high. And then you've got the fact that there's third-party data sources as well that we also use to automate how we are selecting games as well, and the kinds of ads that are going into the relevant kinds of inventory. Then, of course, there's the data play as well. We pass back more data points than a typical audio advertiser, because typically you can get more data points from a game integration. So yeah, we've put quite a lot of investment into making sure that this is brand safe.
Yeah, and I think that that's great for people to understand, because it's not just the idea of simply putting an audio ad in a game. A lot of the things that advertisers would be concerned about are being taken into consideration. So that was terrific. Thanks. So we're going to move on to Amit now. Again, another player in the space with Odeo, and he'll provide us with some further context on what is going on in this space. So Amit, it is all you.
Great. Thank you so much, Dom. And thanks, everyone. I'm super happy to be here. And we're excited to take part in this webinar, hearing everybody, all the experts speaking here. So it's a great honor for us to participate as well. So obviously, following the great discussions by Ben and Christian, so we will talk a bit more about digging deeper into the opportunity, and then also giving some more insights on what we're seeing today, what is the size of the mobile gaming audience, who is the mobile gamer, and what kind of different formats and units we're using today within the space. So mobile gaming, again, they mentioned it before, obviously today, the fastest growing form of entertainment. It is larger than both films and gaming together. If we take the gaming audience of Netflix, Hulu, HBO, ESPN, Disney Plus together, we still have a larger mobile gaming audience than all of those. And if we're looking about the geographical breakdown, obviously we see that gaming is everywhere. Gaming is an opportunity for brands not to be missed. And I believe that for the past 10 years, brands have been trying to find their way into the mobile gaming space. But I really, truly believe that with Odeo, this is now actually going to happen. So when we're looking even deeper into the different demographics of who plays like games, who plays mobile games. So obviously, like Christian said before, we see males and females, and there's a slight skew probably towards female audience within mobile games today. We see that it runs across all ages, and we see that by far mobile is probably the larger cut of all other platforms if we're looking at PC and console gaming. And again, if we're going into trying to find or define those users, who are they? So, it could be from teenagers to parents. It could be from business professionals to teachers, could be from high data users to the occasional gamers. Everyone is a gamer today. Not only that, but mobile gaming environment also offers a clear value exchange for the brands, for the users, but also for the game developers. And we're talking about a controlled game content. So basically, we've said it before, this is a brand safe environment. We'll show some more surveys and data supporting that moving forward, but also desirable demographics. Your traffic, your users are there. You just need to have to find them. And not only that, but consumers that are playing mobile games tend to be way more relaxed, way more engaged, and also receptive in terms of getting additional content throughout the ads. Now, what we do at Odeo is we understood coming from the mobile gaming space that gamers today are frustrated and bombarded with intrusive, aggressive, full screen ads that are just popping up after every screen. And at the end of the day, we see the frustration, and we believe that in-game audio is the answer to let those users play on by enhancing the user in-game experience, providing them with engaging and non-intrusive relevant ads. In terms of how we do it, so very similar to what Christian shown before, we support two formats. One would be the standard format, meaning a developer-initiated ad. So this would be, for example, an audio ad that could be triggered when a user goes into a new level, into a new screen. So the developer chooses to initiate the audio ad, and the audio ad, as the perfect companion, can simply accompany the gamer into the experience rather than having to break the gameplay experience with full screen ads. Now, the other formats that we're supporting, again, rewarded audio, which is basically a pure takeoff, again, based on what Ben mentioned, probably the most successful ad format within mobile gaming today. Rewarded video. Rewarded video is probably the holy grail for advertisers, for developers, and for users, since it pretty much provides the best value. It provides completion rates for the advertisers. It provides great monetization for developers, and it gives users the ability to continue their gameplay time, have more session time, and also to retain better within the game. So with rewarded audio, again, as Christian shown before, the understanding is that giving the users an instant ability to go back into the gameplay time has a huge, huge advantage over the existing formats that are being positioned today within the space. In terms of how we work on the units, so we support also the banner audio, which could be a 320 and 50 ad unit. And then we also support an icon audio ad unit. This is a totally flexible ad unit that could be positioned pretty much anywhere on the screen. It's a square-sized icon. It's clickable. It has user controls. It shows the loading time for the ad. But most importantly, we feel that this visual is, again, one of the major benefits for advertisers within the space, because up until today, and again, the guys before me said it, but audio was restricted to, we call it audio first environments, music streaming, podcasts, smart speakers. And in those environments in which sometimes you could have a companion banner, in most cases, nobody would look at this companion banner. So there are no engagement, no viewability on that side, but within a mobile game environment, it's totally different. And when, like we said, users are so engaged into the game experience, having this visual element into the screen, giving them more context into what is the ad that we're hearing, what is the experience that we're getting right now, but also giving them the ability to engage and click through to move on as performance, direct response ads, or anything that the advertiser would like. I'll show you a quick video right now showcasing our ad unit in action, just so you can get a better understanding of the experience.
We've been told that perfect mornings exist for the lucky few, that morning people own the waking hours. But the truth is, mornings belong to all of us. And while your morning might look like this, or even this, Your mornings are what you make of them. All it takes is saying yes. Starbucks Morning Yes.
So obviously, again, sound sells. We know it from standard radio. We know it from audio advertising. It's probably one of the oldest advertising formats that exists today. They just celebrated 100 years for the first commercial radio that was broadcasted in the US in 1922. So again, probably the oldest ad format that exists today. But based on data that we have today on our side, so, and this relates also to what Christian said, so we also invested a lot of resources in trying to analyze and trying to detect the in-game or the on-device volume at any given time in real time. And based on the data that we see from our users today within our network, we see that over 70% of the users are playing with their sound on, which means that the opportunity is definitely there and users are playing with sound on. Although the perception is that within a lot of games, users are usually playing with with their sound to be muted, but the data shows differently. And not only that, when we're looking into actual engagement metrics, so in terms of LTRs, again, we're not a podcast environment. We're not a music streaming environment. This is a whole different environment than what the brand advertisers or the audio advertisers are familiar with. And still, even with that environment, we're still able to deliver over 80% of LTRs. And I think that probably the most compelling data would be regarding the CTRs. So engagement is super high. Mobile gamers are used to engage with ads. They are accepting this value exchange of a freemium gaming environment versus the acceptance of getting ads in return. So seeing the data obviously shows that the opportunity is there, and in-game audio ads does lift the engagement without interrupting the gameplay. And we talked about a bit about the brand safe environment. So this is taken out of an ad colony survey. And you can see by looking at the data that from all the different platforms, you can see that mobile games is by far one of the most brand safe environments. And for looking at environments where consumers prefer to encounter ads, so right after Facebook, mobile games come in. And if we're talking about desirable content, so only 7% of the consumers say that they either encounter hateful or inappropriate content within mobile games. So definitely this is an area that is a brand safe environment. And apart from that, we're also working with industry companies such as the IAB and Moat to basically verify the audibility of the ad impressions, to verify the volume of the ad impressions, and to make sure that everything is compliant as it should be. In terms of how we see the future, so there are a few things that we're looking at into the future. I'll just touch it very high level. So in terms of sonic diversity, obviously, audio ads today tend to have pretty much the same standard voiceovers. We feel that into the future, there's going to be a lot of mixture in that area and a lot of sonic diversity. Short form audio is something that, we're big believers in. We feel that the current, let's say, ad lengths that is usually working within the audio space is not optimal for in-game audio. And obviously, we cannot ignore the immersive 3D spatial, you call it whatever you want, metaverse, but it's all there. It's going to be in the future. We have some developments in the pipeline and already testing a few exciting things on that. And last but not least, we feel that, again, coming from the mobile gaming space, seeing advertisers create ads in scale, we understand that there could be a very nice opportunity for creating synthetic voice ads for scalable ad creation, whether it's different tone variations, whether it's related to different times of the day. So it's all possible throughout the technologies that are available today. And we feel that this would take a major part into the future. I guess that's pretty much it for me. So thank you, everyone. It was great. Thanks.
That's great, Amit. Excellent stuff. And I think really gives you a feel for what's going on right now in the space. You talked about the shorter duration ads and that audio is generally 30 seconds. So just two really quick things to touch on is, will a 30 work? And if a shorter duration ad is better, what would you recommend as the right duration to optimize both the brand's message and the minimization of their user experience being interrupted for the player?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Obviously, as we said before, regarding the short form, so we feel that what's happening today is that we're seeing a lot of budgets that are repurposed from standard radio ads into digital, and therefore most of the ads are fitted for either a streaming radio, music streaming service, but not specifically for a mobile gaming environment, in which sessions tend to be shorter. And already, we are aware of the short attention span by consumers and users today. So we feel that, the audio advertising optimal length for mobile gaming should be anywhere around 10 to 15 seconds at the maximum. There have been plenty of researches that have been done by Pandora that has been speaking about the effectiveness of short form ads. And if I'm not mistaken, they had shown that even with a 3-second to a 5-second ads, they still are able to get much better ad recall than those 30-second ad spots that are live today within a radio environment. So for your question, I guess that the optimal length should be about 10 to 15 seconds, but I'm guessing that this is something that we'll see more of in the future.
Yeah, and look, I agree with you. We often talk about the fact that people are not just advertising in audio, a lot of omni-channel marketing going on. And when there are sonic logos or there's a particular message that hits you with the volume of video ads that are playing, if you're doing ba bum bum ba inside of a game, and that's a 1-second or 2-second ad, that's old school radio, theater of the mind, and image transfer. And so I think that plays into the way that this can be utilized with shorter duration ads.
Absolutely.
Again, because it's in that context. So just want to touch briefly on brand advertisers versus direct response. One better than the other, or do you think it can work for both?
So I think, like I said before, brands have probably been trying to get in the mobile gaming space for the past 10 years. So far with not much of success, honestly. And I feel that, again, audio is the right opportunity for brands to penetrate into the market. But when we're looking at performance versus brand budgets in total, so obviously, the performance advertising space is huge and very easy to justify the investment. So when we're talking about brand advertising, so usually we have to show the value, we have to understand how to show the ROI actually of those ads that are being running. And with performance, obviously, since you do have the engagement, you do have the attribution, it's very easy to show the value and whether an ad was ROI positive or not. So I can't say that, one is better than the other, but I have to say that if we're looking at the audio advertising space today, which is probably 90% brand advertising based, I would bet that within the next couple of years, it will probably grow more into performance audio, seeing the brand advertisers still in the game, having even additional campaigns that are also direct response in a sense. But I'm guessing that we will see a mixture moving forward with both performance and brand advertisers.
Terrific. Thanks, Ahmed. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I am definitely cognizant of the clock, but I really don't want to speed anybody up, including Adam and Abi now, because obviously a lot of great information being shared. But without further ado, I'll point it to you guys for the future. Adam, Abi?
Thanks, Dom. I'll kick things off, and I am a bit mindful of time, so I won't spend a long time kind of with the introduction to this part, because I really do want to make sure that Abi gets to talk about the great work that his company Number 8 are currently doing in the next part of what we're going to talk about. But we've very much heard about so far, I suppose, what the opportunity is at present. And we've looked at it from, I suppose, two different elements. We heard from Ben, and one of the key messages I heard from Ben anyway in his slides was the the sheer scale involved with the app economy. When we compare it to other medium, it certainly compares extremely favorably. I think the number that stood out to me, just last year alone, there were 230 billion new apps downloaded onto devices. So there's certainly scale there. I could argue that that scale is currently larger than the current audio scale in, I suppose, more traditional audio means. And additionally, we've got several new, truly innovative formats that I think I see it as bridging the gap between visual media and audio media as well, the opportunity within gaming. And we've heard from both Christian and Amit around that. But we can't get away from the fact that traditionally the companies that invest the most in audio are, to all intents and purposes, brand advertisers, and brands tend to buy audiences. And what I mean by audiences is that they have a very good idea of who's listening to a particular radio station or a particular streaming service or a particular podcast, and they will align their brand against that, and they will often buy brands. Now, app developers have not had to, due to the nature of the industry, spend a lot and invest a lot in figuring out who their audience is, invest a lot in working out, I suppose, the nature of their media in order to put together a media pack to sell to advertisers, because the app economy is very much predicated among performance advertising. So pretty much the only thing that they need to really care about is getting a device ID in place, so that can be passed to the person who's trying to sell another game that's appearing in there on an app download, in order to either retarget against that or negative target and not try and target that user as they've already got the app on their device. And that's been the entire economy, and it's a very successful game. However, if we're going to take audio into the gaming environment, we do need to start looking at audience. And I know that have had several discussions around this with the people on this panel. And at this point, I'm gonna hand it over to Abby, who's doing great work to try and solve this problem, and I believe is currently also working at the moment with the guys at Audio Mob and Audio as well. So let's see if I can switch the slide. Abby, over to you.
Thanks a lot. By the way, thanks Dom, Adam, and to Simon as well. It was a really good session so far. And, there were a couple of slides actually from Christian's pack and from Amit's pack that was really good. One was, I remember walking into, I think it was a Targetspot meeting with Adam. I think that was at a Rain Summit event where you showed where audio, how it's consumed throughout the day. And I was just drawing some parallels to Christian when you showed the slide of gaming being consumed throughout the day. You can see a lot of parallels there, yeah? This is not, that snacking behavior of it. Of course, audio is a little bit different in the sense that you can actually consume it whether the screen is on or off. In the case of gaming, you're still having these bursty sessions. And that was a very good parallel. And Amit, to your point, the demographic piece on the breaking that myth of, okay, it's not just the 14-year-old guy in the basement. And that's the myth, right? That was really, it's like, okay, shit, it is actually females who are actually playing. And there's a big, it's just, okay, what's going on? And I've had conversations with Adam before, and also on this language mismatch. It's like, imagine brands are speaking a specific language and the gaming supply and the publishers is having a specific kind of language that they're trying to send, and there's a matching that has one. So, from a brand point of view, a brand understands, who is my audience, who is my customer, who am I trying to get my message out to? But gaming is, is very new for them. On the other side, gaming supply, as all the numbers showed, it's massive. The scale has been increasing, and it's going to continue increasing coming forward. But then beyond the scale factor, how is a brand going to actually understand and trust to say, you know what? I know that this audience that I used to target in an audio environment, which I'm used to, be it a shopper, be it a jogger, be it someone who buys, as an auto intender, that's a very popular one, or even a vehicle user. How do I know that this gamer is going to give me that same kind of return? Because my entire brand persona, my service, and my values are tied to that persona. How do I know that? So it's almost like a brand wants something, but then the gaming environment is actually saying, okay, it's cool, it's great, then this massive scale, but there's like a crosstalk almost happening. And that's where I see there's a big misunderstanding. And I think, Adam, you briefly touched on that as well. If you go to the next slide. And it's, at the end of the day, gamers are also people who just happen to enjoy playing games. It's like we all listen to music, we all watch movies, we all use the fitness apps. Same way, it's just that gaming is a very, time consuming, and also it's very exciting to continue playing games. It's very engaging form of content. So gamers also fall into the fact that they're fitness enthusiasts or weekend warriors or the green commuters, shopping or couch potatoes, so on and so forth. And these are behavioral attributes that actually can be determined through the power of AI and technology that runs on the device today, that we are working with either in the audio world or in in-game audio or with in-game specifically, or just with mobile advertising. We can actually determine these moments and also these behavioral patterns that are completely idealist, that do not rely on any identification, to then have these being offered to brands as a form of targeting capabilities. And that's what's very exciting, because gaming, on one hand, it gives you the scale, but then brands, if you can basically tap into it as a brand, all right, I want to target fitness enthusiasts. As a Nike, I want to tap into fitness enthusiasts, because I know that this person, beyond just playing a tennis game, they are actually quite active. Because the in-game behavior doesn't mean that I am doing that. I could be playing GTA, but that doesn't mean I'm going to buy a gun. It really doesn't. So that myth of, oh, I need to basically, just because I'm buying a bow and arrow doesn't mean I'm going to buy a bow and arrow in real life. No, that doesn't equate. But I have real life attributes, behaviors that actually can translate to what the brand's trying to understand and convey. And that's where I think that's a missing link between, unlocking more and more budgets and unlocking more and more spend, because it's, as Christian and Amit both pointed out, it is a massive opportunity. And I think that will only keep growing. But this language mismatch needs to be taken account. And that's what we do at Number 8 is it's on-device contextual data. And contextual data from our point of view is being able to understand in a mobile environment, what is the user doing when they are playing a game? When they're working out, they're relaxing, and they're commuting, and so on and so forth. And also based on these moments, what is the behaviors that they're building up? And then allowing the brand to target and reach these audiences at scale without relying on any identifiers. So yeah, that's a bit of the unveiling the gamer, Adam.
Fascinating. So Abhi, I just want to ask you, again, it's very Star Wars-like, and I think it's awesome. What do you see as, because we're talking about the future here, what do you think the timeline is to make that a reality, where someone who wanted to advertise against those parameters would be able to do so?
So we're already live. So we are live in Australia. We are live in the States. We are live, and we're seeing addressable audiences coming up without any IDs. We're seeing these live, and these audiences coming up. We have demand coming in from advertisers saying, can you get, vehicle users? Can you get weekend warriors? Can you get fitness enthusiasts, walkers, so on and so forth? And yeah, the interesting thing is what's really resonating with advertisers is the unbiased nature of the data that is not reliant on self-reported, or self-identified data. It's not like I'm clicking on a Facebook page saying, okay, I like candy. That means I like candy. No, I'm doing and displaying these behaviors. That's one. And the in-moment marketing capabilities is very powerful. From a timeline perspective, as we basically work with partners such as AudioMob and Odeo, these will be live and available for audio advertisers in the coming months for sure.
Excellent. Great. Thanks. Great stuff. Again, I'm watching the clock here, and I want to be respectful to everybody's time. So we do have a bunch of questions that were asked, and we will follow up with those folks directly. But to kind of wrap this up, just some quick key takeaways. The fact that audio advertisers are now able to break out of that audio first environment. I think that you got a good feel for that today. The value of in-app advertising and the ability to reach new audiences, but not just new audiences, but with forward-leaning engagement. And obviously, look, audio is just a natural format when you think about what's been, and Ben talked to this, the evolution and then the adoption of different formats, display and video. It makes complete sense. The other thing is, gamers are people. They're everybody who is on this panel and everybody who is in the audience. They're consumers. And it's just a new and creative way to engage with them beyond the ways that you would be doing it, in other media. And I think that this is really important for people who are interested on the demand side in the space. We're only working with, the gold standard partners, those that are going to be able to provide the audio detection and the brand safe environment. So the opportunity is real today, and it will only grow further, both in scale and, as you just heard from Avi, in innovation. And so we're really excited about that. If you are interested in learning more, please feel free to contact us, requests at targetspot.com. Again, I want to thank you all for listening in and staying a little bit over, and certainly want to thank all of you guys that shared some great information, and hopefully everyone found it valuable. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great day.